This is the new Super 1+1 TKL version, a new custom keyboard from IQUINIX known for their awesome pre-built keyboards. This is a custom kit in group buy right now through September 25th, with turnaround time expected to be around October or November of this year. The name Super 1+1 kind of refers to a basic keyboard layout plus your needs. In other words, it's sort of a modular design. Now this particular unit is not exactly modular, though it may look it, but the whole design language of the entire Super 1+1 lineup you see here is that it's somewhat modular in that there are a ton of different layouts that are going to be available over time. But I have the 10 keyless version here, and that starts at $349 for the wired version, $369 if you want the wireless version. And the 10 keyless version has a couple of different layouts as well, depending on your configuration, wired and wireless, etc. If you're looking for an ISO version, that appears to only be available in the wireless option. And all of them use hot swap PCBs, no soldering required. Now keep in mind, this is a custom bare bones kit with no keycaps or switches included. However, if you do purchase within the first 7 days, you can get a free set of keycaps. I'm already a little bit late on this video, but by the time it goes up, you should still have a few days left to make that decision. Now this particular 10 keyless version is a little bit different from your traditional 10 keyless. It acts a little bit more like a hybrid between 10 keyless and 75%. Mainly in that there's no gap between the function row and the number row, and you've also got an F13 key and a dedicated pause and play key. This red, white, and blue one is their primary design for this keyboard, but it's also got 3 other solid color options if you prefer. This keyboard is very unique in the way that it's put together. It's got a pretty untraditional layout for the case, and it gives it a really unique look, especially if you're going for this multicolor design. The top part of the case is divided into 3, technically 4 pieces. The main portion on the left with the LED indicator lights, 2 separate sections on the right, and the IQUINIX logo badge connecting the 2. On the bottom you have the main part of the case that's going to house the PCB, this separate bottom piece which houses the batteries and USB-C port as well as your power toggle switch, and this really nice super reflective mirror silver PVD weight which I am very afraid to touch because I will ruin it with my stupid little fingerprints. The unboxing here was probably the coolest unboxing for a keyboard I've ever experienced. You lift the flap to reveal 2 trays, one with boxes numbered 1, 2, and 3, and the bottom tray with the board itself. In box 1 we've got a really cool keycap and switch puller. I've never seen one like this, and I think this is going to be my new main one to use. In box 2 we have this thing that I was confused about at first, but it's actually a screwdriver. You pop out the bottom and it has 3 bits in it. Then I had a bag of stabilizers and bump-ons for underneath the case, a USB wireless adapter, and wow, a coiled aviator cable. USB Type-C on the keyboard side, USB-A on the computer side. And in box number 3 we have switches. Now please be warned that the final edition again will not include switches. They threw these in for me so I can complete the build for the review. These are their new Moonstone switches. They're linear, pre-lubed switches, no word on the materials, but they are very smooth and sound really good out of the box. They are a semi-translucent kind of white looking color, and they each have LED diffusers, which is really going to help that lighting shine through from underneath the keycaps. Now the PCB is hot swap with The PCB again is hot swap with 3 and 5 pin switches, so no soldering required at all. You can just put these bad boys into the keyboard and you're going to be good to go. Of course, without, you need the keycaps. Now this keyboard is gasket mounted. I have an FR4 plate, but you also have the options of palm or aluminum. This thing does use a number of standoffs and has a thick layer of foam between the plate and the PCB, so depending on how flexy you really like your typing experience to feel, this may feel a little bit limited in that regard. Now the pour-on foam between the plate and the PCB is also attached to a thin layer of PCB foam that you're going to mount your switches through. Both of these were lightly adhered to my PCBs, so there was no taking these off for me, at least not that I wanted to do. Nor did I need to, I just installed the stabilizers over the foam and it was done. Underneath the PCB is another layer of foam, and honestly it makes the whole thing sound great. This combined with the switches gives it a nice, deeper, thockier sound. As for the stabilizers, when I put these boards together I tend to not lube the stabilizers at first just to see how they can stand on their own without that. And honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. Now it's probably a good time to mention that the enter key stabilizer is not one of the stabilizers that came with this keyboard because my review copy was shorted one stabilizer. So yeah, that's a stabilizer I got from another keyboard. Yep. Alright. Now obviously it sounds like it's still going to need some lube and some tuning, but it doesn't sound terrible out of the box for not having done anything other than installing them. Now this version I received was mostly already built, but I had to take it apart to mount the stabilizers. And IQUINIX tells me that because of how complex the whole build of the case and everything for this board is, to make things much simpler, the final version of the board is going to be completely put together minus keycaps and switches, so the stabilizers will already be mounted and lubed. Let me tell you, taking this keyboard apart was a son of a gun, mainly because of its modular looking design with all the pieces of the case. All the screws are on the bottom, and in total I had to remove about 16 screws just to get this thing open. In total, including the weight, which I didn't need to remove, this is a 7-piece case. Most of these keyboards, not including a weight, would have like 2 pieces. So, it's quite a bit. The thing that made it the most difficult for me though, ribbon cables. I hate ribbon cables. And this thing has 3, plus 2 battery cables. You've got the ribbon cable from the PCB to the USB port, one from the PCB to the LED lights on the case, and one from the main PCB to the second PCB for your TKL keys. Now when I first saw this board, I thought it was modular, and it looks like it would be, but it doesn't seem to be at all. And then I thought, okay, maybe I can flip over the right side if I wanted to. You could have the arrow keys on top for whatever reason. Just something to make the design make sense. But with the top having 3 rows and the bottom having 2 rows and the whole gasket groove shape and whatnot in the case, you can't seem to flip it over. Maybe you can make it work, but it just doesn't seem like you can make it work. And that's not even taking into account the screws underneath, which I didn't even think about until right now. It almost makes me question why for this particular version they went with a 2 PCB design, when really they could have just gone with a normal 10 keyless PCB and been done with it. Here we are, it is what it is, and if anything, I guess you could say it provides a little bit more flex. Personally, after taking this thing apart and putting it back together, I think the decision to go with a bare bones pre-built kit was the right call here. With the board put back together and switches installed, it's time for keycaps, and thankfully IQUINIX sent me a set made to match this keyboard. These are cherry profile double shot PBT, very much like the keycaps we've seen on their pre-built boards. And with all that, the board is done. Now I do recommend, if you are going to use this in wired mode, that you use the included cable. I try to use just a generic USB-C cable that I have laying around because I didn't feel like plugging in their cable for whatever reason. It must have been the cable I was using or the port I was plugging into, because I plugged this thing in and for whatever reason it was not registering on my computer at all. It just didn't detect anything. Then I tried the actual aviator cable that came with this board, plugged it in directly to my laptop, and it worked perfectly. Bluetooth also connected really easily. I just held function and 1 until the blue LEDs flashed, and then I connected to my laptop, and that was it. Of course, you have the wireless dongle as well for the more stable connection while gaming, but that is going to drain the battery a little bit faster. Now I didn't mention this, but there are some silicone pads that go underneath the spacebar into the plate over the PCB, which are not just there to help with the sound of the spacebar, but they also protect as a cover for the unique wireless antenna that is built into the PCB. IQUINIX says this is to give more of a stable connection and even give a much longer range, so arguably if you wanted to use this for like a TV PC setup that you have, you could do that, although this is a bit of a heavy fancy board to have on the couch. Inside are 2 2000 mAh batteries, which IQUINIX says can give up to a total of 3000 hours, which is a lot, but that is assuming that you're going to be using Bluetooth only, no RGB lighting whatsoever, and just a number of other factors and settings that go into that. So actually hitting 3000 hours may not really happen depending on your settings, but it's something that they say is there. Obviously I have no way of testing that, but if you want a keyboard with a nice long battery life, this may be one to look at. There is going to be software, and it looks and acts very similar to other IQUINIX software that I've used. You can customize your keys, set up multiple function layers, macros, adjust your lighting, and so on. According to my spec sheet I have, it says this is also going to be compatible with QMK, though I haven't tested that out. Altogether, this is a really unique keyboard, and I haven't seen anything like it in my time reviewing keyboards on this channel. I think it brings a lot to the table, but is it worth that $349 starting price to you? I mean, that is up to you, depending on what you're looking for in a keyboard, and if this looks like something that shouts out to you, hey, I want this, cool. Enjoy. I don't think you're gonna have a bad time. So how do you feel about this keyboard? Is there another keyboard that you may be looking at in the price range of this one that may be a better alternative, or something you would recommend instead of this? Let me know in the comments, I'd really like to know. If you do want to pick this one up, I will have an affiliate link in the description. Again, this is a group buy, so it's not something you're going to be getting right away. There is a turnaround time of around October or November of this year. And if you do want to purchase using my link, it really helps out the channel and is much appreciated. And if you want to help out the channel for free and you don't plan to pick up this keyboard, or maybe you do, you can still do this for free. Just like the video, leave a comment, subscribe if you're new, and share this video with a friend. Anybody who might be interested in this keyboard or might at least look at it and be like, hey, that's cool. Share it with them. Just put it on your Facebook, on your socials, etc. And tell them the Portly Gamer sent you. And when they ask who is that, just tell them to watch the video and they'll understand. They'll know. They'll know. Alright, that's all the time I got here. I got stuff to do. Thank you guys again for watching, and thank you again to IQUINIX for sending this out for review. Portly out.